Hey, want to talk consent?
Sure.
Awesome. What is consent? Consent is a voluntary agreement between two or multiple people that is a foundation between these parties saying yes, and it is an ongoing process. So that is between sexual activity or asking even somebody to give somebody a hug. So Leroy today has a story for us.
I do.
And are you ready to share that with everybody?
I am.
Okay.
So my story actually begins at a bar, and this is completely true. We go out with a bunch of friends at this bar, and we're all drinking, and I realize that there's this girl that likes me, one of our friends, and I like her too. And so we start getting together at this bar, and we make the verbal agreement to go home to my house and have sex. And so we do that. So we get home, and at this point we're really tipsy. We're at my house, and we're about to have sex when she immediately goes, stop. And immediately I get off. And in my head, I had two choices. It was either I make the wrong choice and continue because she already agreed prior, or I get off and we have a conversation. And in that moment, I'm really thankful to say that I got off and we had a conversation, because she ended up saying no, I don't feel like this is right. And I said, you know what? Trust your gut. You're probably right. If this doesn't feel good, I don't want to continue. And so right there we stopped and we had a conversation, and we agreed to instead cuddle and talk, which it was consensual, and we did that, and the night ended up great. And the moral of the story essentially is, when you wake up the next morning, you have a set of feelings, and those feelings can be negative or positive, and based on your choices the night before or the evening before or the hour before, based on that choice determines who you're going to be for the rest of your life and what you did for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And so one thing that we wanted to touch base on is, what does consent really look like between intimate partner relationships, right? Because this was a one-off story, but I would like to oftentimes not call these one-off stories, because in this case, this person wasn't a survivor or a victim of sexual violence or rape. However, there are 1 in 5 women that oftentimes get sexually assaulted or raped, not just on our campuses, but within our own homes. And this is just 1 in 5 that was statistically quote-unquote proven, which in fact a lot of people don't come forward and report, which I think is a huge issue here. But when we talk about sexual violence, I think what we wanted to do today is, what does consent look like? We say that we should ask for consent, so we have that. But then we have the other hand of, what does consent really look like? So for one, consent is enthusiastic, it is ongoing, and it is very, very verbal.
Mm-hmm. For 2, consent can be given and also taken away. So consent is not a law once it is given. Once I say, hey, Cynthia, yes, we can do this, doesn't mean she can now hold on to that yes and say, well, you said yes 2 hours ago or last night, so now we have to do this.
Exactly.
I always have the ability to take back consent, to say, I don't want to do this, to change my mind.
Yeah, and consent is also when two people or multiple people are actually in the state of mind to actually say yes. So if there is alcohol involved, and I know that there's oftentimes a legal system where people just say that there's a blurry line here, actually there shouldn't be a blurry line. If people are actually not in a state of mind to say yes, I want this, then we know that there is no consent involved, and that shouldn't be happening in the first place, where we're waking up the next day morning and not remembering what actually took place. And so our main message to drive home was that we want to make sure that consent is involved, consent is talked about, and consent is normalized. We live in a world where rape culture and sexual violence is so predominantly exposed to us, whether that's through social media, on our campuses, and between our even own friends. And so how can we change that discourse and challenge those notions that we've already been taught? How can we really tell men that, you know what, your masculinity is not fragile when we tell you that we don't want to have sex with you, or we don't want you to hug us? And saying no does not mean convince me. It means that, you know what, at this point in time, I'm not ready for this, and I want you to hear me. I want you to respect me as a human being and listen to me. And so that's why we were here today, to let you folks know that we want to practice consent. We practice consent in our day-to-day lives, and we want to share that with all our friends and families. So thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah.
Can I kiss you?
Yes.
Mwah.
Yay.